What is going on, my fellow navigators, and welcome back to another video. My name is PokeNav and I am here to help you navigate the world of Pokemon one video at a time. Today, guys, we're talking about the biggest mistakes that I see among new investors, as well as mistakes that I've made along my journey in investing in Pokemon cards, and how you guys can avoid these same mistakes by using the strategies that I'm going to give you today. But before we begin, guys, let me just ask you, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up button on this particular video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and also go ahead and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video that I put out on the topic of investing in Pokemon cards. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it, guys, with the 5 biggest mistakes that I see among new investors and how you guys can avoid these right now if you're just getting started. So let's go ahead and get started with the 5th biggest mistake that I see among new investors, and that is buying from unreputable sellers. I can't tell you how many times that I've either seen online or that I've spoken to someone personally who have lost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on buying fake products. And you see this time and time again with folks who are just getting into investing, that they go out, they start making their investments, they're excited, that feeling, that energy takes over them, and they lose their sense of reasoning. They basically lose that sense of noticing when a particular deal is too good to be true. You see it time and again with things like booster packs, booster boxes, fake products, resealed products. People go out, they see that it's way undervalued, and they don't have that experience to notice when they're actually looking at a fake product. So what I want to do in this particular category is give you guys some tips and some things to look at to make sure that you're buying from a reputable source. One of the ways that you guys can go ahead and mitigate your chance of purchasing from an unreputable seller is, if you're buying online, look at reviews that previous buyers have left on their site. If they're leaving reviews that maybe product was not what was intended, product was not as advertised, these should send red flags in your direction that this is not a good source. Another thing to look at is look at the ratings that previous buyers are leaving for these sellers. If they're getting, in my personal opinion and in my business approach, I personally will not buy from anyone that has less than a 5-star rating. And I know that may seem very stringent and very harsh, but in all reality, what I've found, if someone does not have a 5-star rating and they have less than that, chances are there's something wrong with the way that they're doing business. And personally, I only want to conduct business with people who have the best intentions and are doing things the right way. So take a look at their ratings, take a look at their reviews. Those things will send off red flags almost immediately that perhaps you shouldn't be doing business with that particular seller. The other thing is that if you're buying in person, you want to make sure that the person that you're buying from is willing to meet at normal business hours. And what I mean by that is that they should be meeting you at a time that is customary to most business operations. If you're in contact with somebody that, let's say, wants to meet at 10 o'clock at night in a dark Fry's parking lot, or pick your grocery store, that should send a red flag in your direction. There's no reason why anyone would be doing that unless they are a scammer. And I found that time and time again with either stories online or with other people that I've spoken to personally. There's no reason why anyone should not want to conduct business within those normal business hours, let's say 9 to 5. There's absolutely no reason if they're doing things the right way. Now, once you've met with them, and let's say that you're meeting in a neutral location, which you should be a neutral location where other people are around. That is my recommendation. So let's say a Starbucks, for instance, where the transaction is actually going to be made. You want to make sure that you carefully and methodically go over that product before you actually make the transfer of money, either physically or digitally using Venmo or any of those other sources. You want to make sure that you go over that with a fine-tooth comb. You want to look for, if you're buying sealed products, you want to look for any tears in the packaging, any, let's say, gluing. There's a lot of other videos out there, by the way, where the authors go into great detail about exactly how to identify fake products, and you guys can certainly go and watch those once you're finished here. And perhaps in the future, if you're interested, I can certainly go over how to detect a fake product. But you want to make sure that you go over that with a fine-tooth comb while you're there with that person. And if the seller is not comfortable with you doing so, or they start getting fidgety and start giving you indications that they're trying to hurry up the buying process, again, guys, a lost transaction there, or maybe a missed product, is more than worth you maintaining your finances. So if the deal falls through, it probably should have fallen through in the first place, because if somebody's not giving you ample time to go over your buying decision, then perhaps that's not a buying decision that should be made. So any good seller out there is going to give you that time. Any of the business contacts that I've worked with in the past have always done so, because you never know. For them, they could have actually purchased a fake product in the first place, not even know it, and it's not until that transaction that actually transpires with yourself that they actually realize that they were scammed in the first place. So pay your due diligence in that regard, guys. Make sure that you're buying from reputable sellers, and those are the ways that you can make sure that you're doing so. All right, and the fourth big mistake that I typically see among new investors, and this can actually happen for people who have been in the hobby or investing for a while, is that when they get started, they don't take the time to actually sit down and determine what their investing strategy is going to be. Now, I've got a previous video on this very topic of how you can actually put together a great Pokemon portfolio and investing strategy. I'll put the link up here in the eye when you guys want to go and check out that. But this is really a foundational step that so many people overlook when they get into the hobby of investing in Pokemon cards. And it's so important because you want to understand what it is that your goals are. Many people just go out and start buying products because they're excited, that feeling of nostalgia really overcomes them, and they simply go out and just start buying products left and right without really understanding what their short-term and their long-term goals are. And that's really no approach to have, whether it's with Pokemon investing or whether you're investing in the financial markets. I mean, it would be analogous to, basically jumping onto a brokerage website and basically selecting the first 5 stocks, let's say, that look appealing to you. You want to make sure that you're paying your due diligence, and that's really a term that's going to be repeated here today is paying your due diligence. You want to do that here. You want to do the research. You want to sit down. You really want to contemplate what your goals are for your Pokemon investing strategy. You want to understand, are you going to be in this for short-term gains? Are you going to look to just flip products quickly to have those quick returns? Or are you in it more for a long-term investing strategy? In that case, your approach is going to be very different, or maybe you have a combination of both. But you really want to sit down and you want to make sure that you understand exactly why you got into investing and what your short and long-term goals are. It'll really pay off for you guys later on down the line. So moving on, the third biggest mistake that I see among new investors is not reaching out to other investors or collectors, especially those who have been in the hobby for quite some time. The old adage, knowledge is power, really rings true here. For those people who are just getting into Pokemon card investing, it can seem overwhelming, admittedly. There's a ton of different products out there. There's a ton of different ways that you can approach it. And really the previous mistake that I had just hearkened about of sitting down and understanding what your strategy is really ties into this next point. Once you've come up with that strategy, you want to also reach out to people who have been in the hobby for some time. You want to accumulate knowledge, not just from people that you know personally, but also from, let's say, people like myself or other people online who have been doing this for some time. And you want to accumulate that knowledge and really take strategies from a lot of different areas and then really piece them together to really have a more holistic approach as to how you want to proceed. And this is really important because as you're developing your particular strategy, you want to make sure that you're constantly learning and you're constantly growing. It's those people who think that their particular approach, maybe the approach that they started with, is the best approach, or that it's the approach that will always be the right one moving on into the future. And it's those people who usually get left behind later on down the line, because you should be malleable, you should be adaptable, you should be constantly learning. This is not only a hobby that is fun and enjoyable and nostalgic, but it's also a hobby that you have to be really at the top of your game. You have to be constantly learning, constantly tracking the markets to understand how things are trending. And if you're not doing that, if you're not making contacts, if you're not reaching out to other investors or collectors, then you're really doing yourself a disservice. So this is really another one of the big mistakes that I see, guys. Make sure that you're reaching out. Make sure that you're making contact with these other investors and collectors. It's really gonna pay off for you in the end. And moving on to number 2, guys, the second biggest mistake that I see among new investors is not having a strong group of contacts. Now, I discussed earlier about having contacts with other investors and collectors. This really pertains to maintaining contacts with business relations, people that you are either currently working with or have worked with in the past. And this is so important, guys, because I have found time and time again that maintaining a strong group of business contacts is invaluable to your investing strategy and ultimately to your long-term growth. And I'll give you an example here. This is personally one of my biggest mistakes that I made early on in investing. When I first got out of college back in early 2014 and I moved back to Arizona, one of the first things that I did is I visited an old card shop that was in a neighboring town that I used to frequent when I was a kid. Now, I hadn't been there in a long time, but when I went back in, things really hadn't changed much. And the gentleman that owned the shop, I actually got to talking to him. This was long before I had actually, understood about investing in Pokemon cards. It was merely just the passion that I had and nostalgia that I felt by seeing those cards again. But I got to talking with him and, told him that I used to come in when I was a kid, over 14 years prior to that. And, we had a really good conversation. And I told him, I said, is there any way that you still have some of these older products? I didn't even know that a lot of these products were still around and things like that back then, which most people didn't. And he said, you know what, I think I might still have some of these vintage products, either in a storage locker or maybe in back stock somewhere that I just haven't pulled out, because at the time, obviously, he was just selling the newer products that were released at that time. Long story short, I got done with talking with him. I grabbed his number. I wrote it down. And this is going to seem funny to you guys, but back in 2014, I didn't even have a smartphone back then. In fact, I didn't actually have a smartphone until I was about 26, 27 years old, believe it or not. But I just jotted his number down on a piece of paper and I got in my truck, left. I was, actually applying for other jobs, finance jobs at that time, and lost his number. And years later, 3 or 4 years later, when I actually started getting into investing, I didn't have his contact information. And I tried to reach out to the store. Unfortunately, the store had closed down. The gentleman that had owned the store had moved away. nobody in the town had his contact information, and so potentially I lost out on what could have been gems, absolute gems of product. I mean, this guy had, I remember going there as a kid, I mean, he had everything. Base set, Fossil, Jungle, Team Rocket, all the Neo sets. And quite possibly he still had that. He gave me every indication that he still had that, but because I didn't maintain that relationship, that business contact, there's no way of me knowing out. And it still bothers me to this day that I didn't garner that information from him. And so guys, the big point here is make sure that you are maintaining a strong book of contacts for your business relationship. Make sure they have your information, make sure you have their information, because you never know when those gems are gonna come up. It may be, you know, just small things here and there, first 3, 4, 5 purchases or transactions, and then maybe it's that 5th or 6th transaction that they say, hey, I just came across something I think you're gonna like, and it turns out to be an incredible investment. So big thing here, guys, as you're getting started, make sure that you're maintaining those business contacts closely, because you never know when they're gonna pay off. All right, guys, so making our way up to the #1 mistake that I see among new investors, and that is new investors thinking that gambling is investing. That's right, gambling is investing. And what I mean by that, I'll use a specific example that I see time and time again, whether this is with people that I know personally, that know that I do this for a job essentially, or from stories that I see online or YouTube videos, horror stories. And I see this mainly in new investors who, when they get back into the hobby, they take the same approach that they did when they were a kid. They go out, they start buying expensive, especially vintage booster packs. They start trying to crack them open and find chase cards that they can grade. I mean, realistically, guys, this is the same thing we did when we were kids. And although Pokemon is a kid's game, and although it brings back a lot of nostalgic feelings of being a kid, when you're going about it from an investing standpoint, you've got to be smart. Okay, guys? When you're going out, and especially for a new investor, if you are trying to buy expensive booster packs, especially in this day and age where packs are weighed, or you don't know if they have been weighed, and if they are, if it's a heavy pack, if it's an unweighed pack, if the seller has weighed those heavy packs, kept them for themselves, and then are now selling the unweighed packs. There's so much uncertainty in that realm, and for a new investor to go out and really put forth a ton of capital in trying to pull these chase cards, that's really just gambling, guys. That's not investing. Again, it would be just like an investor in the financial markets going out on a brokerage site and basically just looking at the flashiest stocks out there and putting down a ton of money on those. So you want to make sure that you're going about it diligently. You want to make sure that you're going about it in a smart way. Don't fall into this trap of thinking that gambling is investing. Now, for those of you out there, if you've got a ton of capital, if you've got a lot of disposable income, and this is an approach that you want to take, and this is something that you're passionate about, then by all means. But for the average investor, really for the people that my channel is mainly tailored to, I highly recommend to not take this approach. Pay your due diligence, go about it in the right way. Use some of the tactics that I've laid out in previous videos, and again, I'll put those videos up here in the eye so that you guys can refer to those once this video is over. Those are the approaches that you want to take. Don't ever think that gambling is investing. All right, guys, so that pretty much wraps it up for today's video. Remember, I want to remind everybody, make sure if you're starting out on your Pokemon investing journey, make sure that you're paying your due diligence up front by doing your research, accumulating the knowledge, basically looking at the data. Do all of this up front. Look to your peers who have been in the hobby for some time, or other people online, like myself, who have been doing this for a while. get that knowledge, get that sound foundation first before you set forth on this journey of investing in Pokemon cards. Trust me guys, if you do this and you basically do all of the legwork up front and avoid a lot of these common mistakes that new investors make, it's really gonna make the journey of investing in Pokemon cards that much more enjoyable for you. And as I bid you adieu, fellow navigators, remember, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button on this video, especially if you like these investing videos. I'll have more coming down the pipeline, and be sure, to let me know what else you guys are interested in. I'm always curious to see what it is that you guys are looking at in particular as to, maybe investing topics that I haven't discussed, that you haven't heard other investors or collectors discuss. Let me know. Hit me up down in the comments section. Let me know of a particular topic that you want to hear, and chances are I'll do a video on it. If there's enough response on a certain topic, then I'll be sure to do a video on it to make sure that you guys really have that knowledge and really have that background to really put you guys on the right path. And if you're interested in more videos like this, be sure, go ahead and check these videos out as well, guys. My name is PokeNav. I'm here to help you navigate the world of Pokemon one video at a time, and I will see you all in the next video.